Hey everybody, this is the final video for now in my Fantastic Four Stan Lee and Jack Kirby coverage, and this volume is a massive one. I'm going to be covering issues 41 through 50. The big storylines we're going to have in this one are reappearance of the Frightful Four, the wedding of Reed and Sue that has a cameo of basically the entire Marvel Universe. It is so fun. We're going to be introduced to the Inhumans, and then we're going to cap it all off with the Galactus Trilogy, which is the most famous Fantastic Four storyline in basically their history. And it delivers the goods, man. That is such an amazing storyline. The Silver Surfer, Galactus showing up. It's great. So let's dive into it. Fantastic Four, Volume 5. Fantastic Four Marvel Masterworks Volume 5, written by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. This volume covers issues 41 through 50 and the annual number 3. Fantastic Four issue 41, The Betrayal of Ben Grimm. The Thing has walked out on the Fantastic Four. As in the previous issue, in a battle with Dr. Doom, the Thing was in his Ben Grimm form and had the opportunity to stay in that form, but Reed Richards forced Ben to change into the Thing once again. The Thing heroically beat Doom, but he is upset with the others for being forced into this again. So the Thing he leaves in anger. And then I have to dock some serious points on the credibility of this issue for this next plot point, okay? The Thing disgruntled, he leaves, and he jumps into the back of a pickup truck without the driver noticing. In that pickup truck, the Thing manages to fall asleep. The driver drives for several hours, eventually arriving in rural New Jersey. The pickup truck hits a bump in the road, and the Thing gets tossed out the back. But the Thing, he's so sleepy that he still manages to stay asleep, and he lands in the middle of the road, landing in front of an old house. And this is where it just gets unbelievable. The Thing, when he landed out of the back of that pickup truck, happened to land in front of the house where the Fantastic Four's villains, the Frightful Four, just so happen to be staying. The Frightful Four then collect a sleeping Thing and bring him into their home. Back to the Baxter Building. Reed Richards is talking to the renting agent, because apparently the Fantastic Four have been renting their place in the Baxter Building. They don't own it. I always thought they owned it. So they've been renting all along, and the renting agent is not happy with the Fantastic Four because of all the destruction that has been happening recently. The renting agent, Mr. Curtis, tells Reed that someone's gonna have to pay for these damages done to the building during your battle with Dr. Doom. Reed defends himself saying, "I understand that, Mr. Curtis, but you must realize we were defending the city against a terrible menace." The agent replies, "Well, we can let our lawyers iron out the details, but have you considered moving your headquarters to a lonelier part of the city?" Later on, the Fantastic Four get word that the Thing was spotted in rural New Jersey, and Alicia thinks the Fantastic Four should go in and check on him and make sure he's alright. We see in the home of the Frightful Four, they are all inspecting the Thing's body. There's Sandman, Trapster, Medusa, as well as their leader, the Wizard. Meanwhile, the Fantastic Four begin to follow their lead on where the Thing is. Now, the Fantasticar got destroyed in the last issue or so, so the Fantastic Four have to find another means of transportation. Luckily, Johnny's always working in a garage, and he has another car they can use, a modified SS Excalibur Racer. So in that car, the Fantastic Four start their drive to New Jersey. Back in the Frightful Four's home, the Wizard is hard at work on the Thing. He uses something called an id machine to brainwash the Thing and turn the Thing evil so that they can use him for their own purposes. And it works. The Wizard tests out the Thing, and the Thing is obeying his commands. The other members of the Fantastic Four have been going through and searching door to door to every home in rural New Jersey, and eventually they stumble upon the home of the Frightful Four. Once they head inside, a fight ensues. At one point, Medusa with her hair is strangling Sue Storm with it, and Sue Storm uses her invisible force fields to break that hold. But then, the Thing, brainwashed by the Wizard, he goes up to attack Sue. Sue is at first confused, thinking that the Thing is going to assist her, but the Thing tells Sue, "I'm gonna take a wallop out of that force field, and the shock is liable to knock you in the middle of next week." Sue is shocked that the Thing is threatening her, and this is really silly. Sue Storm, just on the threat of the Thing hitting her, passes out and faints. Okay, so Sue faints on just the threat of the Thing hitting her force field. Reed, he tries to get into the mix, but the Thing slams Reed Richards down. Johnny Storm, he gets hit with a whole bunch of sand by the Sandman, and the Thing grabs some of that sand and chucks it at Johnny's face with such incredible force that Johnny gets knocked unconscious. Johnny, Sue, and Reed are then tied up into various elaborate death trap machines. And we see the Thing, still brainwashed, has hatred in his eyes, signified by his orange-colored pupils rather than his typical blue. The Wizard then plays around with some of his other hypnotic abilities he has on the Thing. He tells the Thing to sleep, and the Thing falls asleep immediately. So the Frightful Four, they have a hypnotized Thing passed out and the other members all tied up, and they are debating what they should do next. First, what are they going to do with the Thing? The Wizard says, maybe they should just kill him. So Sandman, he gets his fist and he slams it down on the Thing, but he's not strong enough to kill the Thing with just his fists. Trapster thinks he has something in his gun here that'll kill the Thing, and he's gonna do it, but then Medusa stops him. She suggests that they have a brainwashed Thing. Maybe they can use him in the future. They can let the Thing battle their enemies for them, and if he should lose, then who cares? The Frightful Four think this is a good idea, so they're gonna let the Thing live. But first they have to kill the other members of the Fantastic Four. The Wizard, he claps his hand and wakes the Thing up. The Wizard then starts riling the Thing up, saying, "Look in the mirror, Thing. Now remember who did this to you. It was Richards. He's the one who made you a monster you are. He doesn't want you to become Ben Grimm again. He hates you. He's jealous of you. He's the worst enemy you have." Reed, now awake, he says, "Ben, don't listen to them. They've got you in some sort of trance. They're trying to brainwash you. Don't let them do it, Ben." The Thing is still brainwashed, though, and he begins walking towards Reed Richards. He says, "You did this to me, Richards. You turned me into something so ugly that they can only call me a Thing." Reed responds, "Ben, you don't know what you're saying. You've got to snap out of it, for all our sakes." The Thing responds, "Shut up, Richards. I ain't listening to you. I'm gonna change you now, you hear? I'll do to you what you did to me, and nothing can stop me. Then when you're finished, I'll get the rest of the Fantastic Four, like I should have done a long time ago." So it seems like a brainwashed Thing is gonna kill the Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four issue 42, To Save You, Why Must I Kill You? We see Reed Richards is glued to a board of wood, and the Thing is gonna pulverize him. The Thing, he swings a punch, but Reed manages to avoid it by stretching his body out of the way. Now Reed, he's unable to get his body off of this wood, but instead, he somehow expands his chest immensely, knocking the Thing back and discombobulating everyone else in the room. Meanwhile, in the other room, Johnny Storm awakens from being knocked unconscious, and he has a portable water sprinkler strapped to his chest. It will go off and extinguish his flames if he ever decides to flame on, although all Johnny Storm has to do to avoid this is flame on really fast enough to melt the shower apparatus before it soaks him. So Johnny, he does so, and he is now free. Clearly the Frightful Four didn't really plan out this sprinkler thing that well. Johnny finds Sue in another room, trapped in a chemically treated plastic bag, which she cannot get out of with her invisible force field powers, but luckily Johnny can just melt that bag and free his sister that way. A full-on battle then ensues, with Johnny and Sue fighting the others. The Thing is still trying to go at Reed, and eventually the Thing breaks the board that Reed was strapped to. So now Reed and the Thing are fighting. The Thing, he grabs Reed's body and starts stretching and folding him, and he ends up taking Reed and squishing him down and shoving him into a metal jar, which the Thing then slams shut. So if you ever wanted to wonder who is the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four, I'm thinking that the Thing takes it. He seems to be able to beat anyone up if he wants to. Johnny Storm is fighting the Frightful Four, and Medusa, using her hair, uses her hair to turn on the nearby sink. She then soaks her hair in that sink, collecting water, and then she takes her hair and splashes Johnny Storm with it, causing his flame to extinguish. The Thing, only using one finger, then kind of karate chops Johnny on his neck, knocking him out. In the commotion, Sue Storm turns invisible, and she grabs the metal jar that Reed Richards is stuck inside, and she runs off with it. The Frightful Four then debate what they should do with Johnny Storm, and they figure out, well, why not hypnotize him, too? Then they can have the Thing and Johnny Storm fight for them. Meanwhile, a short distance away, Sue Storm, with her force field powers, manages to squeeze the jar that Reed is inside a certain way, popping off the lid, managing to finally free Reed, just in the nick of time too, as he was running out of air inside that jar. Back inside the Frightful Four's home, they have hypnotized Johnny Storm as well, and they start having Johnny test out his powers. Reed and Sue eventually return to the Frightful Four's home, attempting to strike back. Reed, he managed to find some tear gas in the wizard's nearby equipment storehouse. So Reed, he sprays that tear gas down the chimney into the house. Eventually everyone inside the house starts running outside to avoid the tear gas. And when they get outside, Reed and Sue are there. And Reed, using his body like a slingshot, is firing the wizard's anti-gravity discs on everyone they can. Eventually, Medusa, Sandman, and Trapster are trying not to float away up into space. The Thing, he also gets shot with the grav disc and starts floating. But Reed just grabs the Thing with his stretchy body, and then him and Sue try to run away with him. Reed is hoping that he will be able to deprogram the Thing later. While they get away, the Wizard and Johnny Storm regroup and prepare to chase after them. Fantastic Four, issue 43, Lo, There Shall Be an Ending. This is the conclusion to the 3-part Frightful Four Thing brainwashing story. Reed and Sue get to their car and they drive off with the Thing, who's still floating in the air thanks to the anti-grav disc. Meanwhile, the Wizard removes the anti-grav discs off of the other members of the Frightful Four, and then the 4 of them, plus a brainwashed Johnny Storm, begin pursuing Reed, Sue, and the Thing. We learn from some conversation between Sue and Reed that when she was invisible, she defused their machine that they were used for brainwashing. So Johnny is not actually brainwashed, he is most likely just pretending to be brainwashed. And sure enough, as we see the Frightful Four along with Johnny pursuing Reed and Sue, Johnny begins discreetly sabotaging their efforts, flaming on too hot at first, and then claiming he can't fly as fast as the Wizard wants him to. Eventually, they lose track of Reed, Sue, and the Thing. Reed, Sue, and the Thing arrive back at the Baxter Building. The Thing, still brainwashed, is still brutally fighting back against Reed. Although thanks to the grav disc and the Thing floating, Reed is still able to maintain the upper hand. He eventually manages to trap the Thing in an escape-proof experimental lab they have in the Baxter Building. Reed then pumps in some sleeping gas to knock the Thing out. And then after this, he can strap the Thing into some machines and try to un-brainwash him. Meanwhile, back at the Frightful Four's home, the Wizard realizes that his id machine has been defused, and it hasn't been operating properly. So they soon deduce that Johnny Storm has not actually been brainwashed. So they attack him, shooting him with all their weapons and the Sandman also blasting him with sand. Johnny eventually gets knocked out. Meanwhile, at the Baxter Building, after lots of struggle, Reed Richards finally manages to seemingly unbrainwash the Thing. But it was a very strenuous undertaking, and in the end, the Thing falls unconscious. The Frightful Four then fly over to the Baxter building to have another round of fighting. They also have Johnny Storm strapped to a giant grav disc outside, just floating in the sky. Fighting ensues once again, and in the course of the battle, Medusa manages to escape out the window, and assessing that her team is going to lose, she makes a break for it. She runs to her spaceship and manages to take off and escape. Johnny Storm attempted to chase after her and stop her, but somehow he delayed himself just enough so that she got away. Johnny wonders, why did he let her escape? Was it because he didn't want to fight a girl or something? Or something more? Anyway, the other 3 members of the Frightful Four are all beaten up and then apprehended. The Fantastic Four are going to bring them down to the police station to be arrested. Meanwhile, now a slowly recovered Thing makes amends with the other members of the Fantastic Four. The Thing asks, "Ain't you got sense enough to hate me for what I done?" Reed tells the Thing, "Of course not, old friend. You couldn't help yourself. It was that id machine." Sue hugs the Thing and says, "You're yourself again now, and that's all that matters. The Fantastic Four won out in the end, after all. We proved that no foe or combination of foes can really ever defeat us." Reed, he then mentions how he wants the Thing to be the best man at his wedding. The Thing to this says, "Hey, that's right. I almost forgot you two were getting hitched. You know, maybe someday you two will come to my wedding. Maybe. Maybe I won't have to remain a Thing forever. Maybe." We now move on to the Fantastic Four Annual number 3 from 1965, Bedlam at the Baxter Building. This is the long-awaited wedding issue of Reed and Sue. Dr. Doom is holding up a newspaper with the headline, "Today's the day, wedding bells for Reed and Sue." Doom, he then crumples up the paper in anger and says to himself, "Reed Richards, the only man in the world ever to defeat me, getting married today? This is my greatest chance for revenge, now when he will least expect it. My attack must be foolproof, irresistible, all-powerful." Doom, he then walks over to a ridiculous machine he has in his base. A machine he calls a high-frequency emotion changer. With it, he can fan the flames of hatred in the heart of every evil menace in existence. Doom, he gloats, "I shall transform their wedding day into the day of their final destruction." So Dr. Doom, with this machine, will remotely be able to manipulate the emotions of every villain on Earth and have them try and attack the Fantastic Four this day. So this issue is going to be nothing but a whole bunch of cameos of the entire Marvel Universe, villains and heroes alike. We see outside the Baxter Building, police and various news cameras are there, as well as fans too. Inside, the festivities are already on their way. The Thing, he greets Tony Stark. They shake hands. Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat, is with her best friend, Hetty Wolf, and they are starstruck at everyone in attendance. The Puppet Master, he has secretly arrived, being influenced by Dr. Doom's machine. The Puppet Master is controlling an unsuspecting man. The man has poison on his hands. The man is slowly walking over to the Thing. He's going to shake the Thing's hand and poison him. But just before that can happen, Nick Fury, who now has an eye patch, is in attendance. Nick, he yells out, "Stop! Hold it! Don't shake his hand!" Nick Fury then has some S.H.I.E.L.D. agents apprehend the man. Nick Fury then explains, "S.H.I.E.L.D.'s hidden brainwave camera took this picture of that guy's head. See these two mental patterns? It means another mind was controlling him." The Puppet Master, worried he might get caught, scurries off and leaves. And as he leaves, we see the Red Ghost and his super apes are in attendance. What evil deeds are they planning? Elsewhere, we see the Thing, he meets with Professor X. Professor X then senses nearby danger. In the floor of the lobby, Mole Man and his Subterraneans begin attacking. Professor X and his X-Men help out though and take them down. They beat them up and shove them back down into the ground, and then Iceman seals them inside. The Thing he runs upstairs to warn Reed and Sue, but then the Super Apes are there attacking. Sue creates a force field and Reed Richards tries to fight them off along with Johnny Storm. But then luckily Doctor Strange arrives, and he sends the Red Ghost and his Super Apes into another dimension. Afterwards, Reed Richards thanks Doctor Strange. The Thing he warns Reed, "I don't like it. There's something rotten going on. Too many of our old sparring partners are popping up out of nowhere, one at a time." We also see appearances of the Iron Man villain, the Mandarin, Kang the Conqueror, the awesome Andy Android, and many others. The Super Skrull shows up and attempts to also ruin the wedding, but luckily Thor is there and takes him down. Matt Murdock, the Fantastic Four's lawyer, arrives, but when he senses trouble, he disappears and turns into Daredevil, and he then rushes outside as a whole bunch of Hydra soldiers have arrived. As Daredevil is fighting them off, Captain America and Iron Man are fighting off some other threats. There's a villain called the Executioner, as well as the Enchantress and Mr. Hyde. So many villains from across the Marvel Universe, many of which aren't even in the Fantastic Four's Rogue Gallery. The heroes Hawkeye and Spider-Man also show up to help take some of these threats down. In this panel here, we see 5 Marvel villains taking on Iceman. I recognize this one as Electro, and this one's the Mandarin. I have no idea who these 3 are though. And I don't have time to look it up because there's even more villains on the next page. So much fighting going on. Doom is just emotionally manipulating everyone to attack all at once. Apparently, sadly, Namor couldn't make it as he is stuck on another adventure happening in Astonishing Tales number 72. But someone from the deep sea does arrive. It is Namor's Atlantean enemy, Atuma. Atuma and his army of Atlanteans start coming out of the ocean, but then Daredevil, who was fighting Hydra in a truck, manages to somehow send that truck off a dock and right into Atuma's ship, taking Atuma and all the Atlanteans and the Hydra officers down. So much crazy shenanigans are going down. Finally, the Watcher shows up to talk with Reed. Reed, when he sees the Watcher, questions the Watcher, "But I thought you were forbidden to interfere with the other races." The Watcher answers, "It is so written, and yet, if you will dare venture into the unknown with me, you may find the key to victory." The Watcher then takes Reed Richards on a journey through the 4th dimension, and they soon quickly arrive at the Watcher's home on the moon. The Watcher explains to Reed, "I am at liberty to explain nothing, to offer nothing, yet if you should see something that might help you, I am not permitted to interfere with whatever you may do." I gotta be honest, the Watcher, he is just stretching his non-interference stuff here. He's basically whisked Reed Richards away to the moon, and then he tells Reed, "Look, I'm not allowed to interfere, but if you were to so happen find something here that might be useful for you, you could use it." So Reed, he grabs a weapon, and the Watcher is not allowed to explain what it does. The Watcher just tells Reed, "If used wrongly, it will destroy you. I can say no more. Return to your own world now." So Reed, he returns back to the Baxter Building, and all the fighting is still going on. Reed, he then uses the Watcher's weird-ass machine. Reed explains, "I could tell by this machine's composition and its construction. It had to be a subatronic time displacer, capable of transporting living beings back to the immediate past. All these villains here, they'll return to where they were before they attacked, with no memory of what has happened since." So Reed, he uses the machine and successfully sends all the villains back. Everyone celebrates Reed saving the day. Reed, he thinks to himself, only one man could have caused that mass attack. Only Dr. Doom has the evil genius, the power. But the Watcher's machine changed all that. Doom, the one responsible, will lose his memory of the events too. So Doom will also remember nothing. Hawkeye, he triumphantly shouts, "Clear the way! We're going to have a wedding after all!" So the wedding commences. The Thing, as Reed's best man, is crying immensely. The priest, he says, "I now pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss your bride." Reed and Sue, with all the heroes in attendance, they kiss and now are officially wed. Later on, as the gala reception begins in the grand ballroom, Nick Fury is called outside. Fury is told that there's 2 party crashers outside, giving the boys a hard time. Nick, he says, I don't care who they are. No one comes in without an invite. That's an order. We see outside the venue, 2 men are turned away. The 2 men, as they leave, say, You haven't heard the last of this. We have ways of getting even. And as the 2 men leave, it is revealed to be Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Jack, he says, How about that? Imagine them keeping us out, Stan. Stan Lee responds, We'll show 'em, Jack. Let's get back to the bullpen and start writing the next issue. And with this, we end the wedding of the Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four, issue 44. The gentleman's name is Gorgon. This issue is a beginning of a big story arc that is going to introduce us to the Inhumans, which will then lead us into the Galactus Trilogy. Now that Reed and Sue are married, they have really slipped into domestic life. Reed has constructed the first fully automated dishwasher mechanism, which I do believe they had dishwashers back then, but I guess Reed's is fancier and more automated. As the day goes on, Reed and Sue's focus on domestic issues starts to kind of annoy Thing and Johnny, so they both leave. Thing, he wants to take the Fantastic car to pick up Alicia, so Johnny grabs his sports car. When Johnny begins driving his sports car, though, the villain Medusa is waiting for him in the back seat. And at gunpoint, she demands that Johnny drive her out of the city. She says, This is a vacuum gun and you cannot flame on in a vacuum, so don't try it. Keep driving fast. You're my only chance of escape. I've got to leave the city before he catches me. Johnny questions, Before who catches you? Medusa answers, Gorgon. Now, Medusa at this point suffers from amnesia, so she does not fully remember her past. And this Gorgon is actually a fellow Inhuman, and he is a heroic character, a member of the Inhuman royal family, and he has only come here to return Medusa back to her people. Medusa thinks Gorgon her enemy though, and she demands Johnny Storm get her out of here. Meanwhile, back at the Baxter building, this Gorgon must have been just a little bit behind Medusa. So, when he doesn't find her here, Gorgon climbs to the top of the Baxter building and steals their helicopter and takes off with it to chase after Medusa. Elsewhere, Johnny Storm and Medusa, they drive out of town, and they are on the outskirts near State University. The last time they were here in issue 35 is when they first met this creature named Dragon Man. And that issue ended with Dragon Man being trapped under the ice. And it is now at this exact moment when Johnny Storm and Medusa are talking that Dragon Man finally emerges from the ground and he continues his relentless attacking of humans. As Dragon Man is attacking both Johnny and Medusa, he eventually stops once he gets close to Medusa, as Medusa's female form and flowing hair remind him of Sue Storm, the one human who had ever shown him kindness. So Dragon Man, he then calms down and is no longer attacking. But that is when Gorgon arrives in his helicopter. Gorgon, he lands, and then he begins pursuing Medusa. But when that happens, all of a sudden this Dragon Man starts defending Medusa and begins attacking Gorgon himself. While they are fighting Medusa, she begins to try and escape, and she steals Johnny's car and starts driving off with it. Dragon Man then shifts his attention away from Gorgon and back to Medusa. He flies after Medusa and picks up the car and then starts flying in the sky with it, holding it. Now, Gorgon, he goes back to his helicopter, and he is now chasing after Medusa, flying after her. Johnny Storm, he then pursues all of them, and somehow they all make their way back to New York City And eventually they all wind up on the rooftop of a building, and they are squaring off against each other. Gorgon's power is that he has a very strong lower body. His legs are so powerful that with a single stomp he can create shock tremors to disable his opponents. He uses this to take down Dragon Man, stomping the roof of the building, breaking it, and causing Dragon Man to tumble down to the ground. With Dragon Man out of the picture now, Gorgon is talking to the Fantastic Four and Medusa. Gorgon explains he doesn't want to fight them. It is only Medusa he wants. He then asks the Fantastic Four, "Have you never wondered from whence came her supernatural hair power? She is from the same race as I, and I must bring her back where she belongs. It is forbidden for her to mingle with others." Reed Richards is intrigued. He wants to hear more about this other race. Medusa, being protected under Sue's invisible force field shield, says, "You must not trust Gorgon. You don't know how truly powerful he is, how terribly dangerous he can be." Reed questions, "You say you want Medusa. Tell us why. Where are you from? Why have you followed her?" Gorgon to this says, "Tell you? I'll do far more than tell you. I'll show you why you dare not refuse to hand her over to me. I'll show you the unimaginable power of Gorgon." Gorgon, he stomps the ground, and the ensuing shockwave travels down the building and thunders along the sidewalk and strikes a condemned complex of building a block away, sending the deserted structures crashing down to the ground as though they were made of clay. Gorgon tells them all, "Never forget this. I can destroy an entire city as effortlessly as I shattered those paltry brick buildings. The choice is now yours, Medusa. Do you surrender to me and allow us to leave without further incident, or do you endanger the lives of countless millions when I strike again?" Medusa, with her hair, grabs the Fantastic Four and plans to throw them at Gorgon and escape. But then, Dragon Man returns back to the roof. Dragon Man is in a rage, but then he sees Sue Storm and he seems to remember her from their last confrontation. So Dragon Man is then all of a sudden fixated on Sue. He grabs her and flies up into the sky. Meanwhile, Gorgon grabs onto Medusa and says, "I have you at last, and I'll make certain none will ever get you away from me again. One final kick is all it will take." Gorgon, he kicks down on the building, and seconds later, the entire building which they are all on collapses and crumbles down into the ground. Fantastic Four issue 45, Among Us Hide the Inhumans. Gorgon has taken off with Medusa and they have disappeared. Also, Dragon Man has taken off with Sue and is flying away, and the building that they were all in crashes down to the ground. Johnny Storm, who can fly, manages to grab onto Reed and Thing and swing them over to safety. Johnny, he then begins pursuing Sue and Dragon Man. Dragon Man is very tough though, and he begins blowing hot thermal bursts at Johnny. Johnny manages to avoid them. Johnny has his own trick though. He's going to make himself very bright, producing a near nova amount of white light, causing himself to glow like a blazing sun. Johnny does this, and the shock of it causes Dragon Man to be temporarily blinded, and he drops Sue, freeing her. Later on, back at the Baxter building, Johnny and Sue return with Dragon Man, and they seem to be on friendlier terms now. The Thing, he comments, "If I didn't know any better, I'd say that flying freak is trying to smile." Sue apparently was able to tame Dragon Man. She explains that they must understand he has the mentality of a child, and she convinced him that you guys wouldn't hurt him. Now that Dragon Man is more calm, they have to decide what should they do with him. While they debate that and everything kind of calms down, Johnny decides to go for a walk this night to clear his head, and as Johnny is wandering aimlessly around town, he spots a pretty young girl sitting near a gaping hole in a wall. This girl is named Crystal. She's another member of the Inhumans and the younger sister of Medusa. She has the power to manipulate the 4 elements of air, fire, water, and earth. Johnny begins to go over and try and talk with her, but Crystal is scared of Johnny, as she doesn't know him, so she uses some of her wind powers and manages to escape. The next day at the Baxter Building, we see they are clearing out a room for Dragon Man. Meanwhile, Johnny is just daydreaming. He can't get that girl Crystal out of his head. And that night, Johnny decides to go out and try and look for her again. When Johnny does find her again, Crystal begins to try and run away. Johnny, in order to pursue her, changes into his Human Torch form so he can fly after her. When Crystal sees that Johnny has powers as well, her demeanor immediately changes. She comments, you have hidden powers too? Then you must be like us. Why didn't you say so?" Johnny is a little confused, but he decides to play along with it. He replies to Crystal, "Sure, I'm one of you. That's what I've been trying to tell you." The two of them exchange names and introduce themselves to each other. Johnny, he then questions, "What are you doing here in this neighborhood alone?" Crystal answers, "Oh, but I'm not alone. Lockjaw is with me." Johnny questions, "Who's Lockjaw?" Lockjaw then reveals himself. Lockjaw is a massive, inhuman dog with incredible abilities of teleportation. He serves as the Inhuman royal family's escort and their means of travel. He is also their loyal protector. Crystal, she hugs and pets Lockjaw. She says, "Isn't he sweet? He follows me everywhere. He's almost as powerful and as wonderful as his master, Black Bolt himself." Black Bolt is the leader of the Inhumans. We'll learn more about him later. Johnny, he's just thinking to himself how weird this all is. A giant dog with antenna growing out of his head? What has he stumbled onto? Crystal then says, "It's time I return home. Lockjaw's antenna will probe the rubble and make the secret entrance doors swing open." Sure enough, Lockjaw makes the secret entrance open. He then disappears and Johnny and Crystal enter the doorway inside. Johnny asks, "What happened to Lockjaw?" Crystal answers, "Oh, he must have vanished himself again. He's always doing that, the silly dear." So Crystal is escorting Johnny and introducing him to various other Inhumans, one of which is a man named Karnak the Shatterer. Karnak is also another member of the Attilan royal family, and he is also a philosopher and master of martial arts. He has a unique extrasensory ability to find the weakness or fault in any object, person, or idea. We see Karnak demonstrating these powers. He is standing in front of a block of marble slab. He finds the weakness in the marble, and then with one swift chop, he destroys it. Another member of the Inhuman royal family Johnny is introduced to is a man named Triton. Triton has some of the usual hero abilities such as increased agility and strength, but he also possesses some aquatic type powers, breathing underwater, etc. Johnny is then surprised when he also sees Gorgon and Medusa there as well. Medusa, now having been returned to her Inhuman home, no longer suffers from the amnesia she did when she was part of the Frightful Four. Johnny is immediately on edge though once he sees Gorgon and Medusa, and he becomes untrustful of them. The Inhumans also feel the same way, except for Crystal. Crystal is still trying to defend Johnny. Some fighting occurs, and Johnny is eventually forced to retreat. Using his Flame-On power, he manages to burn his way through the ground upwards, eventually exiting through the surface. Johnny, he then flies up into the sky and burns a large number 4 in the air so the rest of his teammates will see it from the Baxter Building. Sure enough, the rest of them do, and they quickly come and join Johnny. So now all of the Fantastic Four are looking around where Johnny was, trying to see if they can find this entrance back to this Inhuman area. Meanwhile, some of the Inhumans are secretly watching them from up above. And then finally, the Inhuman leader, Black Bolt, makes his first appearance, and he crashes down from the sky. Black Bolt is the king of the Inhumans, and he is cursed and blessed with a quasi-sonic voice, and because of this powerful voice, he must remain forever silent, for with the slightest whisper, he can destroy cities, and with the loudest screams, he can level continents. Fantastic Four issue 46, Those Who Would Destroy Us. The Fantastic Four begin battling it out with the Inhumans. Black Bolt punches the Thing and the Thing goes flying back. The Thing is surprised at how strong Black Bolt is. When the Thing tries to do some counter-offensive, Black Bolt starts doing a whole bunch of flips and manages to avoid the blows. Eventually they lose track of Black Bolt. Reed Richards, assessing Black Bolt's movements, theorizes that the antenna device on Black Bolt's head seems to absorb energy from the electrons around him and convert it into speed and strength. They then soon start battling the aquatic Inhuman Triton. In the course of their battle, Triton says, "We have hidden from the Seeker for years. You will not reveal our presence now." Reed Richards continues fighting this Triton, and as he's punching him, Reed notices that water is gushing from Triton's body. Reed eventually figures out that Triton has some sort of suit that contains a moisture bag, and that Triton needs water to breathe. Triton, having been found out, decides to retreat from the fight, and he dives into the nearby water. The Fantastic Four then wonder who this Seeker fellow is that Triton made mention of. They cannot focus on that for long, though, as they have to worry about the other Inhumans that are continuing to fight them. Karnak attempts to attack them next. Sue Storm puts an invisible force field around them, but Karnak has the ability to detect the weak point in anything, so he assesses Sue Storm's force field and he strikes it with his hand at the part he believes is weak. And Gorgon, he slams his feet on the ground, and Sue and Reed go flying up in the air. Elsewhere at the Baxter Building, the Inhuman Seeker has arrived. He is charged with bringing back those that have escaped the so-called Great Refuge to where they belong. The Seeker, when he is in the Baxter Building, he discovers a sleeping Dragon Man. The Seeker suspects that Dragon Man is one of their inhuman beasts, so he gets his soldiers to collect Dragon Man and take him back with them. Meanwhile, back over to the Fantastic Four, we see the Thing is still continuing to trade blows with Black Bolt. The Thing actually seems to start gaining an upper hand on Black Bolt, but Karnak then instructs Black Bolt, "He's too strong for you, Black Bolt. There's only one thing for you to do. You must use your Master Blow." The Thing, he wonders to himself, "Master Blow? How corny can you get?" Well, Black Bolt, he prepares this Master Blow, and he strikes the Thing with such force that it humbles the Thing. The Thing wonders to himself, "He ought to patent that thing. Ugh, I feel like I've been booted around by the Hulk." Karnak then assesses that Black Bolt is low on energy and needs to absorb more from his antenna, so he will be out of commission for a bit. The big dog, Lockjaw, he then holds a steel girder to keep the Thing in place. The fighting continues for a while more, but then Crystal comes out running, saying that Triton has been taken by the Seeker. This worries the rest of the Inhumans, especially since Black Bolt is now low on energy. So they get Lockjaw to teleport them away. In the aftermath of this fighting, the Fantastic Four are just left confused. They return back to the Baxter Building, where they discover Dragon Man has been taken, and a giant Dragon Man-sized hole has been left in the side of the building. Reed Richards checks some hidden cameras he has set up, and he sees the Seeker taking Dragon Man. And with a special machine, Reed is able to pick up the Seeker's individual heat particle trail, which they will be able to use to find him. We see elsewhere in the city, the Seeker has Triton in some sort of globe filled with water, as well as he has Dragon Man hooked up to some sort of machine restraining him. Soon enough, the Fantastic Four, following the heat signature, arrive. The Seeker and his forces quickly apprehend them though, and then they have a conversation. The Seeker tells the Fantastic Four, "I know why you have come. You wish the return of the one called Dragon Man. You may have him. He is of no further interest to me." The Fantastic Four question why they were interested in him in the first place. The Seeker answers, "I thought he was an Inhuman, but I learned of my error. I am the Seeker. It is my mission to return escaped Inhumans to the Great Refuge." The Fantastic Four then ask, "But who are the Inhumans? Are they from Earth?" The Seeker answers, "You who dwell here are all the same. You think you are the only race inhabiting this planet. You never suspect that another, more powerful species might share your planet with you. Do you presume to think that humans are the only intelligent life Earth has spawned? Our race dates back to the prehistoric days when we created an advanced, highly civilized society, while humans still hid in caves and attacked each other with clubs. The science of genetics was our greatest interest. We were able, through the use of vari-genes, to control evolution and to direct it any way we wished. We produced many Inhumans, all with specialized, carefully created superpowers. But as the centuries sped by, the ordinary humans multiplying far more swiftly than we grew to fear our powers and attacked us on sight. Having no wish to waste our energies in useless battle with primitive humans, our leaders built the Great Refuge to shelter us, to safeguard our supreme species." Reed then questions, "What is this Great Refuge? Where is it?" The Seeker will not answer this question. He says, "That you shall never know." Moments later, Dragon Man, now waking up from being tranquilized, manages to break free of the restraints he was in. Dragon Man then violently escapes the building they were in, but in the process of leaving, he destroys the fishbowl prison that was holding Triton. Triton, lying on the ground, thinks to himself, "Water, gone. Cannot breathe without water. Although if I die free." Fantastic Four issue 47, Beware the Hidden Land. The Fantastic Four look after Triton. They are worried that he will die. So, Sue Storm creates an invisible force field around him, and then they fill it with water so that Triton can rehydrate himself. The Seeker, seeing this, says, "So Triton is saved thanks to your efforts. But remember, he is still the Seeker's prisoner. Even if he lives, he must return to the Great Refuge with me. It has been so ordered." Reed questions, "Ordered by whom?" The Seeker answers, "By Maximus the Magnificent." Maximus the Magnificent, otherwise known as Maximus the Mad, is the current ruler of the Inhumans, having taken over the throne from Black Bolt. Elsewhere, Johnny Storm and the Thing have gone after Dragon Man. They are still attempting to calm him down or beat him into submission. The Thing takes a beating from Dragon Man, and Johnny Storm, he gets an idea. Dragon Man cannot be harmed by Johnny's ordinary flame, but Johnny will try to hammer him instead with ultraviolet rays. From this close range, they'll be more potent than the sun. Johnny theorizes it's a long shot, but there's just a chance that a common ordinary sunburn might stop him where a blast furnace would not. So Johnny hits Dragon Man with his sun-burning powers, saying that this will have the same effect as if Dragon Man had been exposed to a desert sun for weeks. And it works. Dragon Man is getting weaker, his skin is growing sensitive, and he eventually tumbles down to the ground. Meanwhile, back over to the Seeker and the others. The Seeker moves Triton into another tank ready for him. The Seeker then prepares for their journey back to the so-called Great Refuge. Reed, he doesn't like this though. He says out loud, "I can't stand by and let you abduct him like this." Sue tells Reed, "Reed, be careful, we're alone here and his guards are all armed." And then Reed Richards snaps at Sue. And this is going to be part of a beginning trend of a new storyline of now that Reed and Sue are married, Reed is becoming more and more of a dick to Sue and not appreciating her. So when Sue tries to warn Reed, Reed snaps back, "Stop sounding like a wife, Sue. I still make the decisions for this team, and a man's life may be at stake." That line that Reed said, "Stop sounding like a wife, Sue." That's going to be one of his recurring quips to put Sue down. Here's an example of another time where Reed said that line when they were fighting Dragon Man earlier. Reed says, "I'll try to break them up, honey. You see if you can find the tranquilizer gun." Sue says, "Don't get too near them, darling." And Reed responds, "Stop sounding like a wife and find me that gun, lady." Oh man, Reed cracks me up. Poor Sue. Maybe she should have gone with Namor all along. The Seeker tells Reed, "He has broken the law of Maximus, our ruler. I must enforce that law. You have no legal right to interfere." The Seeker then kicks Reed and Sue out of the camouflaged ship that they are in. They then take off and begin heading to this mysterious great refuge. Reed Richards, though, before he was kicked off, hid some sort of homing device on the ship so that they can track its location. Elsewhere, we see Black Bolt and his so-called family have arrived in this great refuge. They begin walking to go and confront Maximus the Magnificent, aka Maximus the Mad. Maximus is also Black Bolt's own brother. Maximus, upon hearing the news, is upset. He says, "So the Silent One dares return from exile? This time Black Bolt has gone too far." One of Maximus's servants says, "We must hide the new weapon from his sight, the one with which we shall conquer the humans." As Black Bolt and his allies begin approaching Maximus, at the touch of a button, releases a whole bunch of creatures named Alpha Primitives. They seem to be a more bestial form of human. These Alpha Primitives attack Black Bolt and his allies, but they are quickly taken down. Eventually, Maximus orders the Primitives to retreat, saying, "Back, you savages! My apologies to you, my dear subjects. I know not how the Alpha Primitives escaped. It is good you are unharmed." Maximus, then thinking of his secret hidden weapon called an Atmo gun, thinks to himself, "My Atmo gun is now safely hidden from Black Bolt, so I may continue the pretense of friendliness towards him." Maximus then says, "Welcome, my brother. Since taking your crown, which you could no longer hope to wear after the unfortunate accident that left you speechless, I have ruled justly and well." Medusa chimes in saying, "You still claim Black Bolt's injury was accidental, Maximus?" Maximus replies, "Of course, my lovely Medusa. Now that Gorgon has brought you back to me, I shall prepare for our marriage." Gorgon whispers to Medusa, "Medusa, I'd not have brought you back if I'd known that was his purpose, believe me." Medusa to this says, "What does it matter if I believe it or not? The deed is done. Maximus is king. None may refuse a royal command." As Medusa says this, Black Bolt and her eyes meet. Black Bolt's eyes seem filled with unspoken love for Medusa. Maximus then yells at Black Bolt, "Stand back, I command you! I am monarch now, you must obey! Stop, come no further!" Black Bolt then moves on Maximus and wrestles the crown from his head. Maximus then realizes that he has been beat. His guards are gone, and Karnak and Gorgon guard the door. He stands alone. He then strategizes a plan, thinking, "I dare not challenge my brother to battle. Though our powers are equal, my cunning is no match for his awesome courage. Instead, I shall bide my time. So long as I possess the Atmo gun, the final triumph must be mine." Maximus then says to Black Bolt, "Oh, there was no need for such theatrics, my beloved brother. I was merely guarding the crown in your absence. Maximus has never desired power. My only wish is to serve you in my own manner." So I guess all it takes to be king of the Inhumans is to wrestle the crown away from somebody. So Black Bolt, he places the crown back on his head. and he is now the king of the Inhumans once again. Some of the others in the room proclaim, "Behold, Black Bolt is king once again, king by right of eminent domain, by right of royal challenge, by right of fait accompli. Maximus is dethroned. Long live the king." Elsewhere, the Fantastic Four are in an airplane, and they are following the Seeker's trail, trying to find their way to the Great Refuge. While they are traveling, Johnny Storm comments about how he thinks he's in love with Crystal of the Inhumans. Sue tells her brother, "Johnny Storm, you barely even met her. You hardly know her." And Reed Richards, continuing his dickish trend towards Sue, says, "Sue, when a man thinks he's in love, nobody can tell him he's not." Sue goes into another room on the ship, and she feels bad. She feels that her and Reed are at odds with each other. Reed has not been acting very nice to her. So Sue comes up with the perfect plan. Her husband is being a jerk to her? Well, perhaps a new hairdo would make him realize I'm not one of the boys. So that is Sue's plan, and she begins styling her hair. The plane they are flying in proceeds, and eventually they plunge through a thick concealing cloud cover, which has hidden the Inhuman Great Refuge. This Great Refuge is known as Attilan, the home city of the Inhumans. Attilan is the ancestral home of the Inhumans. The Inhumans themselves are a highly advanced offshoot of the human race. The Inhumans fear the human race, though, and have tried to remain hidden from them. And at various points in the past, when their secrecy was threatened, the Inhumans have actually been able to move the city of Attilan using anti-gravity generators and move their entire city to another more secure location. The Fantastic Four managed to do an emergency landing on the outskirts of the city of Attilan. They then begin walking around. Reed, Johnny, and the Thing become worried once they can't find Sue. They start calling out her name. Sue actually turned invisible. She then reappears. She explains, "I wanted you all to notice my new hairdo, and this seemed to be the only way to get your attention." This really pisses Reed off. He was worried about her. He says, of all the scatterbrained, addle-padded, empty-headed stunts, that takes the cake. Were you trying to give me heart failure?" Sue responds, "Not at all, darling. I just wanted to remind you that I'm your wife, not just a piece of extra baggage. And you still haven't told me how you like my hair." Alright, I get Sue's a little unhappy, but this was not her best idea ever. Anyway, later on, eventually the Fantastic Four, along with Seeker, who has brought Triton with him, meet with the Inhumans and Maximus, and they all start conversing. Johnny Storm and Crystal are especially happy to see each other, as they quickly run into each other's arms. Crystal is worried though. She says, "Johnny, there's a great danger here. You are humans, and that makes you our enemy." Johnny replies, "Forget that, Crystal. Nothing on Earth could convince me that you're not human too." Medusa, with her red hair, grabs Crystal and separates her from Johnny. Black Bolt then wishes to converse with the Fantastic Four, although he is of course unable to speak due to his crazy voice powers. So Medusa speaks on his behalf. She says, "Black Bolt wishes no bloodshed. If you will depart immediately and vow never to reveal what you have seen, he will spare your lives." Reed Richards to this says, "You've had your say, now it's our turn. You can't stay in hiding forever. Sooner or later, men will learn of your existence, but you think the outside world is your enemy? You're wrong. You've hidden all these years for nothing. Your threats don't cut any ice with us, Black Bolt. All we want is a chance to talk to you, to make you realize that you and your people belong in the world of men. There's no reason for all of you to live outside the human race." Meanwhile, elsewhere in the Inhuman compound there in the Attilan city, Maximus begins walking over to his Atmo gun machine. The Seeker greets him, saying, "Master, I did not expect to see you, sire." Maximus replies, "I am your sire no longer. Black Bolt has again seized the crown, which should be mine, but it soon shall be. Do you hear, Seeker? It soon shall be." Maximus goes over to his Atmo gun and begins readying to fire it. The Seeker has second thoughts though. The Seeker says, "But think, Maximus, consider the consequences if we were to use this." Maximus responds, "My Atmo gun is the most glorious achievement, the weapon that shall win me a world. At the press of a button, it will set up vibrations in the Earth's atmosphere. Vibrations so delicate, so sensitive, that only humans will be affected. Now with one stroke I doom mankind, and when it is done, I shall rule the Inhumans and we shall inherit the Earth." Maximus, he then presses the button. And that leads us into what is probably the most popular Fantastic Four story of all time. A story known as the Galactus Trilogy, a three-parter series of issues beginning with Fantastic Four issue 48, The Coming of Galactus. So this Atmo gun that Maximus fired is supposed to be harmless to the Inhumans, but it will set up vibrations which can end all human life on Earth. So the machine starts working and the ground starts vigorously vibrating. Fantastic Four and the Inhumans are all concerned. Eventually Black Bolt searches and eventually finds his brother, Maximus. Maximus tells Black Bolt, "The deed is done. By now all human life on Earth has ended. Only we Inhumans remain. The entire planet is ours, my speechless brother. And when our people learn that I was the one who gave them dominion over Earth, they will tear that crown from your head and restore it to Maximus, as I was born to rule." Black Bolt smacks his brother down to the ground. Eventually the vibrations cease, and the Atmo gun has finished its work. Maximus, though, he looks up and sees the Fantastic Four are fine. They're all alive. This should not be possible. His machine should have killed him, along with everyone else on the planet. They all then look on video screens of cameras situated in other places on Earth, and they see humans are alive elsewhere too. That is when they all come to a conclusion. Medusa, speaking to Maximus, says, "Do you see? We are not the enemies of the human race. We are not inhuman. We are the same as they. Look, the vibrations did not kill them. Your plan failed. For years we have hidden here in the Great Refuge, thinking that the humans would destroy us because we are a different race, but we are human too. It is only our powers that are different." Maximus stands up, he's shocked. He says, "No, it can't be. They must be destroyed. Earth belongs to us, to me." Medusa continues and says, "You are mad, Maximus. One day we shall rejoin the human race, and it is Black Bolt who shall show us the way. In all this world, it is only he whom I would give my heart, but he has a destiny to fulfill, and I must wait till it be done." Maximus the Mad now becomes very deranged. He yells, "No! You'll never rejoin the humans! I'll defeat you yet! You'll be prisoners of the Great Refuge forever!" Maximus then runs over to his Atmo gun machine. He then explains, "By reversing the charge on the Atmo gun, I can create a negative zone around our land, a zone that nothing can penetrate. The victory shall still be mine, for I am Maximus the Magnificent." So Maximus, he triggers this machine in reverse, and this negative zone starts building some sort of barrier around the city of Attilan. Maximus starts yelling, I've won! Nothing can take my people from me now. We'll be together for all time, and the crown shall be mine again. I've beaten Black Bolt at last." The Fantastic Four begin running, trying to get out of Attilan before this negative zone seals them in. Johnny Storm, though, he's staying behind. He's trying to grab onto this girl, Crystal, who he has a crush on. Johnny says he's not leaving. He says, "I don't care. I won't leave without Crystal. She's gotta come with us." Crystal responds, Johnny, don't leave me. I love you, Johnny." But the Inhumans pull Crystal back, and the Thing, he grabs Johnny. He says, "Johnny, come on. We're liable to be stuck in there forever." Johnny, as he's being dragged, yells, "Crystal!" The Thing says, "I hate to do this, kid, but it's for your own good. You'll thank me someday." And with only moments to spare, the Fantastic Four manage to leave the city of Attilan as the negative zone behind them turns completely solid. sealing the Inhumans inside forever. The Fantastic Four then look at the barrier that has erected. Reed Richards explains, "It's far stronger than any steel could ever be. Nothing yet known to science can penetrate a negative zone." Johnny, he laments, then that means I'll never see Crystal again. There isn't even a chance. Johnny, he slams his fists on the barrier. But eventually the Fantastic Four have to return home. Elsewhere, somewhere in the deep vastness of outer space, an incredible figure hurtles through the cosmos, a being whom we shall call the Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer zooms along the starways like a living comet, with the freedom and wild abandon of the wind itself. So this is the first appearance of the Silver Surfer in comics, and I think the story of his creation is kind of interesting. So Stan and Jack had a method they would use to create these stories called the Marvel Method. They would at first speak and roughly discuss the plot, and then Jack Kirby would go and draw it, and then Stan would write in the dialogue afterwards. But Jack, even though he was just the artist, really had a lot of say in how the story would go. And they were just working off rough plots, so he could really kind of create a whole bunch of stuff he wanted to add in, even if Stan never talked about it initially. And the Silver Surfer was Jack Kirby's creation. Jack Kirby figured that this Galactus villain that we're going to meet soon should have some sort of herald or representative that would be sent along first. So Jack came up with the look and design of this Silver Surfer. Jack wanted someone that could fly through space, and he was sick of drawing spaceships, so he thought it would be kind of cool if the guy had a surfboard and that's how he traveled. But one thing I think is kind of funny is that when Stan got the art later and had to write in the dialogue, he was looking at all the pictures and was like, "Who the hell is this guy? Who is this silver man flying on a surfboard in space?" And while Stan was initially befuddled by this, he grew to really like the Silver Surfer as well. Alright, anyway, continuing on with the story. So the Silver Surfer is flying through space, and in the 5th quadrant of the Andromeda Galaxy, the Skrulls discuss, as the Silver Surfer has been spotted off of their planet. The Skrulls, they are aware of the Silver Surfer and who he represents. One of the Skrulls says, "Order the entire Skrull solar system to be blacked out at once! Faster, faster! The Silver Surfer, he must not stop here." One of the Skrulls questions, "But with all of our power, Lord, with all of our weapons and our armaments, why do we fear the lone Silver Surfer?" The other Skrull answers, "It is not merely him, you fool! Have you not studied your cosmic history? Wherever he appears, it is certain that Galactus not be very far behind." Back on Earth, the Fantastic Four and their plane arrive back home in New York City. All of a sudden, they notice, though, that the sky appears to be on fire. The whole thing is aflame. What is happening? Civilians in the street are running mad. Is this the end of the world? The Fantastic Four have no idea what is happening, but they return back to the Baxter Building to try and investigate. Meanwhile, the Silver Surfer continues to glide through the galaxy. He eventually starts heading in the direction of the Milky Way, and at long last he finds what he has been seeking, a sun, Earth's sun, a true G-type star. The Surfer realizes that such a sun must contain among its satellites at least one planet with the energy and the elemental resources necessary for the great Galactus. Back on Earth, Reed Richards is heavy at work, trying to figure out what has caused the sky to light aflame. Reed must have been working on this for days as he has grown a beard and is disheveled. Talking through a video stream, Sue says to Reed, "Reed, you haven't shaved. You must be starved." She's really worried about him, but Reed just cuts Sue off, saying, "For the love of Pete, girl, is that what you just disturbed me for?" Reed then shuts off the connection. Meanwhile, outside, the sky of fire has now sort of shifted, and is all of a sudden looks like a sky of space debris. What is going on? Sue goes to talk with Reed in his office. Reed tries to shut Sue out, but Sue tells Reed, I won't stand for it, Reed. You're my husband, and I wanted to keep you healthy. The world won't come to an end if you take time out for dinner. Reed to this says, I wish I could be so sure of that. Inside Reed's office, we see the Watcher is there. He has secretly been working with Reed Richards for a while, trying to solve the calamities that are threatening Earth. The Watcher says, perhaps I can explain. I have been causing those phenomena in the skies above Earth with my matter mobilizer. But when I saw that my artificial fire shield caused panic among the humans, I substituted inorganic space debris in its place. Sue, she asks, the Watcher, but I thought you were pledged never to interfere with other worlds. The Watcher normally won't interfere, but the matter was too grave this time. The danger too vast. The Watcher explains, the Silver Surfer is on the way. He is the advanced scout for Galactus. Galactus, who drains entire planets of their elements and then leaves them dry, unable to support life. I could not stand by and see this happen to Earth. That is why I am trying to conceal your planet from the Silver Surfer. For, of all who inhabit the known universe, only Galactus has power enough to match my own. Even as I speak, our flashing foe has reached your moon. Although Earth is hidden with my matter mobilizer, he is certain to grow suspicious of the floating space debris. Our moment of crisis is now at hand. And sure enough, as the Silver Surfer rounds the moon, he finally spots Earth. The Silver Surfer flies down to Earth and he actually lands right on top of the Baxter building. And he begins signaling his master, Galactus. A sudden burst of energy travels from the Silver Surfer through to hyperspace instantaneously. The Watcher explains, he has landed. He is signaling Galactus. We have failed. The thing charging at the Silver Surfer says, failed nothing. Just let me at him. The thing punches the Silver Surfer, and the Silver Surfer falls off the building down below. The Fantastic Four are a little concerned. They didn't mean to potentially kill the Silver Surfer, but the Watcher explains, a mere fall cannot hurt the Silver Surfer. It was simply the easiest way for him to depart. You must forget about him who rides the skyways. The danger is Galactus, for he is the ultimate danger, perhaps the final danger. I sense his universe-spanning sphere entering Earth's atmosphere now. He has received the Silver One's signal. See? The great sphere is opening. His testing devices are sampling Earth's elemental composition. He has found what he seeks. The planet is doomed. Galactus then comes down from his ship, and he arrives where the signal was shot from on the Baxter building. Galactus then addresses the Fantastic Four and the Watcher and says,
my journey is ended. This planet shall sustain me until it has been drained of all elemental life. So speaks Galactus.
Fantastic Four, issue 49. If This Be Doomsday. The Fantastic Four watch in awe as Galactus and the Watcher speak. Galactus says to the Watcher,
so it was you who conspired to hide this paltry world from the eyes of Galactus. Know you not that none may thwart my will?
The Watcher responds, heed my words, pillager of the planets. This tiny speck of matter upon which we stand contains intelligent life. You must not destroy it. Galactus retorts,
of what import are brief nameless lives to Galactus?
Galactus dismisses the Watcher and begins his work. He says,
it is not my intention to injure any living being, but I must replenish my energy. If petty creatures are wiped out when I drain a planet, it is regrettable but unavoidable. Watcher, since you seem familiar with those tiny creatures, I suggest you advise them to hold their tongues before I erase them with one stroke.
The Thing, listening to all this, is not willing to just let it happen. He says, "You oversized creep. What do you think we'll be doing while you're trying to mess around here? We'll whittle you down to size, that's what." The Watcher warns Galactus that the puny humans on this planet are more formidable than Galactus may realize, and the Watcher says he stands with them in their fateful hour. Galactus responds,
"Then you would violate your pledge never to interfere in cosmic affairs. So be it. Despite your power, which I know full well, it must not be forgotten. I am supreme unto myself. I am Galactus. This planet contains the energy I need to sustain me. I shall absorb it at will, as I have done for ages, in countless galaxies throughout the cosmos."
The Watcher argues that those other worlds that Galactus absorbed had no life on them, but there are billions of living beings on Earth. Galactus dismisses this, saying,
"That can be of no concern to Galactus."
The Thing, no longer wanting to just sit idly by, announces, "It's clobbering time," and he goes to punch Galactus. Of course, it does nothing. Galactus dismisses the Thing and the rest of the Fantastic Four like they are mere insects. Johnny Storm tries to blast Galactus with some fire from his body, but it does nothing. Galactus, he just absorbs it, and then, by looking at Johnny, he makes the actual electrons in Johnny's flame contract, stopping Johnny dead in his tracks. The Fantastic Four return back to their home in the Baxter Building and wonder what they should do next. Meanwhile, the Silver Surfer got tossed off the building last issue thanks to the Thing. The Silver Surfer landed on the roof of a building lower down. On top of that building, the Silver Surfer, slightly injured, crawls. He manages to find a skylight, and he climbs inside of it into the unit below. It just so happens that that is the apartment of Alicia Masters, the Thing's girlfriend. The Silver Surfer crawls and sprawls out on Alicia's couch. Alicia is blind, but she will help anyone out in need. Alicia goes over to the Silver Surfer and she touches his face, and she says, "The face of a man, yet different, far different from any I have felt before." The Silver Surfer responds to this, saying, "Man, I am more than man. I am the Silver Surfer. I am the Herald of Galactus." Alicia says she doesn't understand. The Surfer to this responds, "What does it matter? Understanding cannot alter the ways of destiny." Alicia, listening to the Silver Surfer speak, comments, I've never heard anyone speak so strangely, and yet there was a certain nobility in your voice. You really are not of this planet. It's incredible. Your face, never have I sensed such unimaginable loneliness in a living being. Perhaps you are hungry. Let me give you something to eat while I try to understand what you've been saying." Alicia sprawls some food out on her kitchen table. Meanwhile, back at the Baxter Building, Galactus is on the roof, and he is constructing some sort of machine which will convert the life essence found on Earth into some sort of elemental form of energy, which he can then absorb. Inside the Baxter Building, the Fantastic Four are preparing to go and try and fight Galactus and stop him, but the Watcher makes the Fantastic Four wait. He tells them that they must reconsider. Their strength is not yet the equal of their courage. The Watcher wants to educate the Fantastic Four on Galactus. He says, "Before you could know a foe, you must know all about him. Think of Galactus as a gold miner, prospecting in space, but instead of ore, he digs for energy. The device he is constructing on the roof above us is an elemental converter. Its range extends to the entire planet. It has one purpose, and one alone. It is created to convert the oceans of Earth into pure energy, energy which Galactus can hoard for himself. Once the machine is constructed, within a matter of minutes, Galactus's elemental converter will have dehydrated every sea, dried out every body of water known to man. Then, as he continues his relentless search for energy, his ray will strike the cities themselves. Mankind will have to undertake the greatest mass evacuation in history. But eventually, the human race will have no place left to run. The planet-encircling ray will reduce the entire globe to a lifeless, empty husk. And when Earth's fiery core itself is drained, Galactus will depart, leaving behind nothing more than a few fading fragments of what was once an inhabited world. Reed, hearing all this, says, "It's unthinkable. It can't happen. It mustn't happen. There must be a way to stop him." The Watcher explains that he knows of a machine, the like of which cannot be found on Earth. A machine which may save the human race. Alas, it is in a place that only the Human Torch can reach, and since the Watcher is forbidden to actively participate in any crucial conflict, it is the Torch that must obtain it. Elsewhere, back over to Alicia Masters' apartment. The Silver Surfer, seeing the food sprawled out in front of him, decides not to eat it. He instead uses his body to convert the food and even the plates and glasses into energy, which he then absorbs. The Silver Surfer explains, "The process you term eating is far too wasteful. How much simpler it is to convert all those items into pure energy, for energy alone is power." Alicia eventually becomes concerned that the Silver Surfer actually means what he intends, that the Earth will be destroyed. The Silver Surfer to this says, "Destroy is merely a word. We simply change things. We change elements into energy, the energy which sustains Galactus, for it is only he that matters." Alicia to this says, No, we all matter. Every living being, every bird and beast, this world is ours. Perhaps we are not as powerful as your Galactus, but we have hearts, we have souls. We live, we breathe, we feel. Can't you see that? Or are you as blind as I? These words really weigh with the Silver Surfer. He responds, "Never have I heard such words, sensed such courage, or known this strange feeling, this new emotion. There is a word some races use, a word I have never understood until now. At last I know. Beauty." Alicia, she says, "Well then, you are not just a soulless monster. You too have emotions. I knew it. I felt it from the first." Silver Surfer cuts her off, saying, "No, say no more. Do not build up your hopes. I am what I must be. I serve Galactus." Alicia, she points out the window on the New York streets below and she says, "But look at the city below you. Look at all the people. Each of them is entitled to life, to happiness. Each of them is human." Meanwhile, up on the roof of the Baxter Building, Galactus has finished creating his deadly energy converter. Now all he has to do is link the two igniters and begin the energy harvesting process. That process is momentarily paused, though, as the thing on the roof of the building breaks part of that energy converter. Galactus, seeing this, says,
"One of Earth's creatures destroying my converter. Fool! I can create another in mere minutes."
The Fantastic Four continue attacking Galactus, although they're not really making much headway. They are successfully annoying Galactus, though, so Galactus, he calls up to the spaceship that he has orbiting Earth, and he summons something called a Punisher robot to come on down to Earth and fight and keep the Fantastic Four busy. Meanwhile, the Watcher is instructing Johnny Storm on what he must do on the special mission he must partake in to retrieve the thing that might help them turn the tide against Galactus. The Watcher somehow transports Johnny Storm through something called a time-space distortion. They must force open the very fabric of time itself. Johnny Storm has to travel back, far, far back, into the center of infinity. The Watcher explains to Johnny, "You have already ceased to exist in your own time continuum. The distance you are traveling is so great that your language holds no words which can describe it. Though I am pledged never to interfere with the affairs of other races, I shall accompany you all the way, yet It is you who must perform the task. So Johnny Storm is now in a far corner of space. He must pass through the celestial barriers known as unlife, as to touch them is to perish. So Johnny Storm has to swiftly fly through these obstacles. Johnny eventually arrives at the home planet of Galactus. A gargantuan space station is situated there. Johnny travels inside the space station to find the weapon which they seek. Meanwhile, the Fantastic Four back on Earth are fighting this Punisher robot, and it's kind of kicking their ass. And while the Punisher robot is keeping them busy, Galactus continues completing his machine. Meanwhile, Alicia Masters is continuing to talk to the Silver Surfer, and she's slowly winning him over. And the Silver Surfer actually starts contemplating turning on Galactus. He says, "I defy Galactus? It's unthinkable." Alicia argues, "Well then, you could just stand by and see a world destroyed? How could I have been so wrong about you when I sensed nobility, when I thought you possessed compassion?" The Silver Surfer contemplates, and eventually replies, "Perhaps, human, you were not totally wrong. Perhaps for the first time within memory, I've found something worth protecting, even though it means I must do battle with the Master. It is Galactus who is the power. I am merely his herald, and yet we are both travelers in the cosmos. My own power has never been fully tested." The Watcher, he watches this, and he says to himself, "This new development is one I did not anticipate. Never before has his faithful herald dared to defy Galactus. This means a new element has entered the great cosmic game of life and death, an element which may destroy my own carefully laid plan to defend mankind. Without meaning to, the Silver Surfer may himself be the cause of Earth's total destruction." Fantastic Four issue 50. The Startling Saga of the Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer arrives at the Baxter Building to confront Galactus. He says, "Master, for the first time I realize the dreadful enormity of what you plan to do. You must not tamper with other worlds. You cannot destroy the entire human race." Galactus rebuttals,
Would you hesitate to tread upon an anthill? These creatures are of no consequence to Galactus.
The Silver Surfer argues back, "These are not ants, Master. They think, they feel. They have even created the primitive civilization which you see all about us." Galactus tells the Surfer,
Enough, Gleaming One. My patience wears thin. I reject your plea. Now leave me.
The Surfer to this says, "No. At last I have found something worth fighting for. Remember, Master, even you have never witnessed the full extent of my own power." Galactus, shocked, says,
You challenge me? Have you forgotten I am the power? I am Galactus.
The Silver Surfer starts firing energy at Galactus, saying, "I too am a creature of the cosmos. I too can unleash forces which, once released, can never again be controlled. I beg you, Master, leave this paltry planet. Do not compel me to battle the one I have served so faithfully." The Silver Surfer hits Galactus with all sorts of energy and manages to form some sort of ethereal energy cocoon around Galactus that hardens and traps him inside. This only holds Galactus for mere moments. Galactus manages to burst free with an explosion of energy. Galactus then yells,
Where is my herald?
The Surfer, still firing energy at Galactus, answers, "Here, Galactus, but I am herald no longer. You must be driven from this world. You must, no matter what the cost." Galactus tells the Surfer,
The cost, imprudent one, can only be your life. But Galactus is not vengeful. You have served me well in the past. You shall do so again. All eternity awaits me. I can afford to be patient. Can you not see how easily my impenetrable Absorbo shield deflects your foolish rays of starfire? And now, rebellious one, it is time I teach you the folly of daring to question the will of your master.
The two of them continue fighting and arguing the merits of what Galactus wants to do to Earth. The Silver Surfer says, "You would obliterate an entire planet with no trace of misgiving?" Galactus counter-argues saying,
You speak to me as though I am a monster. Do not the humans themselves slay the lesser beasts for food? For sustenance? Galactus does no less.
While Galactus and the Silver Surfer continue fighting and speaking, the Watcher and the Fantastic Four watch on in the distance. They are all still awaiting Johnny Storm's return with the potential weapon that can take Galactus down. Reed Richards asks the Watcher, "What can we do until he returns?" The Watcher just tells Reed, "Emulate the Watcher. Stand and observe. Try to fathom the cataclysmic forces which have been unleashed, for you shall never see their like again. And as for me, I do not stand silent, motionless due to lack of concern. Long have I cherished the stumbling, bumbling, but always aspiring human race. Even as I stutter these words, I am in mental contact with the Human Torch. I am guiding him through a maze of endless galaxies, protecting him from the ravages of infinite space." We see up there in space, Johnny Storm is flying as the Watcher guides him. He's traveling on a path through subspace, avoiding the bands of unlife. Johnny then manages to re-enter his own time continuum, and he appears and eventually arrives back on Earth, atop the Baxter Building. Johnny, he exclaims, I'm back! The Watcher did it! He guided me to the other side of the universe. He brought me through infinity." Johnny collapses down to his knees, though. Reed asks him, "What's wrong?" Johnny answers, "I traveled through worlds so big, there aren't words. We're like ants. We're just ants. Ants!" The Thing comments, "Oh, the kid's in shock." Reed tells Johnny, Johnny, easy. Try not to remember. This must be what you went for." Reed Richards grabs the weapon that Johnny went to retrieve from him, and then Reed shows it to the Watcher. Reed asks, "Is this the weapon we need?" The Watcher answers, "Yes, only that contains the proper alien element." Reed starts tinkering with the weapon, but the Watcher warns him, saying, "Stop! You must never turn the control lever to full power. It could erase the entire solar system in 1 microsecond. Now heed me, as I tell what must be done." As the Silver Surfer and Galactus continue fighting, Galactus warns,
I regret what I must do, for of all who live I have cherished you the most. But now by my hand, the Silver Surfer must perish.
Reed Richards now confronts Galactus, holding the weapon to him. Reed says, "No, Galactus, it is you who will perish, for we have found the weapon at last." Galactus, seeing the weapon in Reed's hand, is shocked. He says,
The ultimate nullifier in the hands of a human. In the name of the eternal cosmos, put it down. Your feeble mind cannot begin to comprehend its power. You hold the means to destroy a galaxy, to lay waste to a universe."
Reed replies to Galactus, "And should the universe crumble, can Galactus survive?" Galactus then turns to the Watcher in anger and says,
You did this. Only you had the power. Only you had the will. You have given a match to a child who lives in a tinderbox.
The Watcher to this answers, "Agreed. This world belongs to these children. Is my action not just? Consider the courage they display. Though they are still in their infancy, you must not disdain them. Did not your race and mine evolve from such humble beings? Do they not possess the seed of grandeur within their frail human frames?" Galactus questions,
But what of Galactus? What of the limitless energy I must absorb if I am to survive?
The Watcher to this says, "There are other planets. We both know full well that the universe is endless. Destroying a race cannot be the answer." Very well. Galactus, he gives up. He says,
I grow weary. The prize is not worth the battle. Let the human surrender his weapon, and I shall tarry here no longer.
The Watcher then instructs Reed Richards, saying, Do as he says, mortal. The promise of Galactus is living truth itself. His word can never be questioned. So Reed Richards gives Galactus the ultimate nullifier back. Galactus, reflecting on these events, posits,
So, for the first time since the dawn of memory, my will has been thwarted, but I bear no malice. Emotion is for lesser beings. Yet there is one thing that must be done.
Galactus then turns to the Silver Surfer and blasts him with his eyes. Galactus continues and says,
Since you shall be herald to Galactus no longer, I remove your space-time powers. Henceforth, the Silver Surfer shall roam the galaxies no more.
So Galactus has stripped the Silver Surfer of his space-time traveling powers. And with that done, and Galactus thwarted, he now readies to depart. Before he does, though, he says,
The game is ended, the prize has eluded me, and at last I perceive the glint of glory within the race of man. Be ever worthy of that glory, humans. Be ever mindful of your promise of greatness, for it shall one day lift you beyond the stars, or bury you within the ruins of war. The choice is yours. Now turn away, for I shall depart via dimensional displacement, harnessing forces beyond the limits of your comprehension.
And in a big burst of light, Galactus is gone, along with all of his equipment. It's as though it's just never happened. Reed Richards, he comments in the aftermath of these events, I wonder if the world will ever know how close it came to an almost incomprehensible fate. The Thing replies, Don't worry, there's always gonna be some loudmouth like you around to spill the beans. Poor Johnny Storm is so exhausted from traveling the cosmos, he just passes out, and Reed and Sue carry him. The Thing, he speaks with the Silver Surfer for a bit, but then Alicia Masters, she arrives on the rooftop, and she begins running towards the Thing and the Silver Surfer. She seemingly steers away from the Thing, though, and goes over to the Silver Surfer and tells him, It's you! You did it! You turned against Galactus as I prayed you would. Silver Surfer answers, After you taught me the meaning of kindness, of pity, I could do no less. Alicia to this replies, I knew I wasn't wrong. I couldn't be wrong when I sensed a certain proud nobility about you. The Thing, he's a little bit upset that Alicia's ignoring him. He thinks to himself, She doesn't even know I'm here. I can't even get mad. I mean, if I was Alicia, who would I pick? A gleaming gladiator like the Silver Surfer or an ape like me? Face it, ugly, it ain't no contest. The Thing, he leaves and walks away from the rooftop. But as he is gone, Alicia turns and says, Oh, where are the others? You must meet them all, especially Ben. He's the most wonderful man who ever lived. Where is he? The Silver Surfer explains that they went downstairs. Alicia wants to bring the Silver Surfer with her so that he can meet the others. But the Silver Surfer stops Alicia, saying, No, my place is not yet with the others down there. I was born to soar, to ride the currents of space, not to be confined within a barren structure. Though the pathways to the stars are now denied me, my place is still in the skies above. The Silver Surfer then jumps on his surfboard and begins flying in the skies. He announces, Too long have I tarried. There is a planet to explore, new wonders to discover. But someday, when I have traversed all of Earth, when the wanderlust is stilled within me, the Silver Surfer shall return. Elsewhere around the world, the news media is downplaying the Galactus events. In fact, J. Jonah Jameson of the Daily Bugle, he wrote an editorial claiming the whole Galactus thing was nothing but a big hoax. Elsewhere, a new villain, who is a brilliant scientist named Ricardo Jones, reads about the Fantastic Four in the newspaper. Ricardo, maniacally speaking to himself, says, "Their time is running out. Let them have their moment of glory while they can. It won't last much longer." How ironic it is. After all the awesome, superpowered menaces they've fought, their final defeat won't come from a Doctor Doom or from a Galactus. No, it'll come from a far more unexpected source. From someone who has the purpose, who has the method, and the time is almost ripe for me to completely smash the unsuspecting Fantastic Four. Only I have the power. So Ricardo Jones here is teasing future storylines of him and his fights with the FF. Meanwhile, at the Baxter Building, Reed Richards is continuing to work on weird scientific contraptions, and he is also continuing to neglect Sue. Sue, she attempts to talk to Reed, and Reed, just tuning her out, playing with his machines, almost accidentally blasts her with electricity. Luckily, Sue's force fields protected her. Reed, he snaps at Sue, saying, "Sue, what are you doing here? How many times have I told you not to pussyfoot in on me when I'm working? You might have been hurt." Sue, upset, replies, "What difference would that make? You wouldn't know about it for weeks. Sometimes I think you've even forgotten that we're married now." Sue begins storming out, and Reed chases after her, saying, "Oh, forgive me, darling. I shouldn't have spoken to you that way." Sue responds, "Of course not. If you had your way, you'd probably never speak to me. You're too busy talking to those crazy test tubes of yours." Elsewhere, the Thing, he's wandering the streets, feeling sad because Alicia seemed to pay more attention to the Silver Surfer than him. And as Thing is walking the streets, he comes across a beautiful woman. But the beautiful woman, she just gets startled when she sees the Thing. She lets out a small scream, but then she calms down and says, "Oh, I recognize you. You're the Thing. For a second, I was terrified. I have to rush. I'm very late to an appointment. Very late indeed." The Thing, now feeling down, thinks, "The poor kid. She was scared, stiff of me. And who can blame her? The only reason Alicia put up with me is because she's blind. And even she couldn't take me anymore. She ditched me for some freak from another world. And why shouldn't she? Even I get goosebumps when I see my pan in the mirror. If only I had some nutty fairy godmother like Cinderella who could change me into Prince Charming. But not me. I'm just the pumpkin that you get turned into if you don't get home by midnight. And I'll never be nothing but the Thing." And later on, Johnny Storm arrives at Metro College. That's right, Johnny Storm is a high school student no more. Johnny Storm is going to college. When he arrives at the college, he is ushered into the dean's office, where he meets another student, a man named Wyatt Wingfoot. Wyatt is here from an Indian mission school outside of Tulsa. Johnny and Wyatt will soon become close friends. So Johnny and Wyatt, they have their meeting with the dean. The dean tells Johnny, "Hey Johnny, there's no need to pretend you're just an ordinary student. Once the other realize the Human Torch is among them, you'll be subjected to all sorts of unusual pressures and problems. Therefore, your stay at Metro College will be more difficult than for most other freshmen." And as the dean continues talking, Johnny's mind wanders. Johnny thinks of his recent awesome travels in space. Johnny, he thinks to himself, what can an ordinary college life hold for someone who's traveled beyond the galaxy? Someone who's had a glimpse of the wonders of the unknown cosmos? Will I be able to sit in class day after day after having soared through space? After having tasted the excitement, the freedom, and the glory of being the Human Torch? And most of all, will I ever be able to keep my thoughts from returning to that half-buried dome at the edge of the world, beneath which an entire race is forever imprisoned? So Johnny's mind then shifts to the Inhumans, trapped in the dome beneath the negative zone. And in that dome, Johnny's love interest, Crystal, she still hopelessly waits that one day she may be able to return to Johnny and not be stuck in here forever. Medusa tells Crystal, "Even Black Bolt with all of his power must fail you this once, my sister. You must forget the boy from out there and build another life for yourself here with us, forever." And as the Dean finishes his speech, Johnny's mind stops wandering and he is now in the present once again. And Johnny and Wyatt, they walk on and continue their new life here in college. And with this, we end the Galactus Trilogy and set up a whole bunch of new storyline threads to be picked up in future issues. Alright, so that was Volume 5 of Stan and Jack's Masterworks Fantastic Four coverage. Let me go through the storylines in this one. So first we had a 3-parter of a Frightful Four story arc where they brainwashed the Thing and then used the Thing to attack the Fantastic Four. And I thought that storyline was pretty bad. I thought the writing was very sloppy in a way, and it was kind of contrived. How Thing is brainwashed, and then Johnny Storm's brainwashed, and then he's unbrainwashed, and they're fighting them. But, you know, it was entertaining, but I got problems with it. But then we had the wedding issue, the Fantastic Four Annual number 3, the wedding issue of Reed and Sue, and I absolutely loved that issue. So fun. I loved all the cameos of everyone in the Marvel Universe showing up, all the different villains and heroes, and they're all there to celebrate Reed and Sue, and it was made into a spectacle and a celebration of the Marvel Universe, and it was just fantastic. Then we had about a 3 or 4 issue arc where we are being introduced to the Inhumans, and part of it is kind of cool. I thought it was fun to learn more about the Inhumans and get introduced to them, and being in awe of some of the weird characters like the dog Lockjaw and Black Bolt and his powers. So some of that was really fun, although a lot of it was also kind of clunky in the way it was written and dragged out a little bit. So I didn't absolutely love it, but fun learning a little bit about the Inhumans and their dynamic with the FF and the world. But then we have the Galactus Trilogy, which totally delivered. I thought it was captivating and very entertaining. The Silver Surfer's such an intriguing character, and the dynamics with him, where he starts talking to Alicia, and he starts sort of coming on Human's side and is going to fight on their behalf against Galactus. Galactus is so intimidating. He is so big. The Fantastic Four are trying to fight him, but they are useless against him. And the Watcher shows up, and he's teaming up with the Fantastic Four to try and combat Galactus. The stakes are just so high, and amazing story arc. I also liked how it was resolved with the use of this ultimate nullifier device. Kind of a MacGuffin in a way, but still kind of a cool concept. How that's the only thing that they could really use to defeat Galactus. They couldn't defeat him with their fists or punching him or outsmarting him. They just had to get this crazy weapon and use it against him, and I thought it was really dope. Now, at the end of the Galactus Trilogy, we have a whole bunch of stuff setting up storylines that are going to happen in the future, like Johnny Storm going to college, Reed and Sue and their fighting, the Thing being sad once again of his appearance and his relationship with Alicia. So a whole bunch of stuff being teased out there, which does kind of, make you interested to read further onward. But on the whole, I thought this volume was great. The Galactus Trilogy by itself is probably a 9.5 out of 10 for me, but on the whole, taking these 10 issues plus the annual, I'm going to give this volume an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you all for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And next week, I'm going to be back covering Marvels, written by Kurt Busiek and art by Alex Ross. And that is a very monumental comic in Marvel history, sort of celebrating the Marvel Universe. So be sure to tune in next week for that.